Every afternoon after school, the children loved to play in a huge garden that surrounded a deserted castle. They loved to play there. One day while playing, a great voice yelled out, "What are you doing in my garden?" It seems the giant had returned back to his castle, and he did not want the children to play there. He shouted at them and told them to leave and never come back. They all ran away as fast as they could. The giant then built a huge spiked fence around his garden, so none of the children could ever get in. The giant put a large gate in the fence with a sign that said, "Keep out," in big black letters. The children would pass by and look sadly at their favorite place to play. They really missed playing in the beautiful garden. Soon fall and winter came and covered everything in snow and frost. The giant looked out his castle window at his snow-covered garden and wished for spring to come. Spring did come, everywhere except in the giant's garden. The snow and frost were thrilled to have a place to stay forever. One morning, the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard a bird singing. He leapt from his bed to look out the window. His whole garden was in spring bloom. The snow and frost were finally gone. Then he noticed all the children playing in his garden. You see, they had snuck into the garden through a hole in the wall, and spring had followed them in. One little boy was crying because he could not climb the trees like all the other children. He was just too small to reach. The giant helped the small boy to the top of the tree. The little boy gave the giant a hug and a kiss and said thank you. The giant thought it was time to let the children play in his garden, so he knocked down the big wall. The children played every day in the giant's beautiful garden. When the giant realized he had not seen the little boy he had helped to the top of the tree, he asked the other children, "Where is your little friend?" "We do not know," said the children. The giant asked the children every day if they had seen their little friend. The children told the giant, "The only day we saw him was the day you knocked down the wall." The years passed and the giant grew old and weak, and he could no longer play with the children. One cold winter morning, he was looking out the window, and he noticed the most beautiful tree he had ever seen.
Wow!
The tree was covered with delicate white blossoms with silver fruit, and beneath the tree was the little boy who had gone missing for so long. "He's come back at last," said the giant joyfully. Forgetting how old and weak he was, the giant rushed down the castle stairs and hurried across the garden. But as he neared closer towards the little boy, he saw bruises and cuts and nail marks in his hands and feet. "Who has hurt you?" asked the giant. "As old and feeble as I am, I will kill the people who have done this to you." The small child smiled gently and said, "Hush, don't be angry, but come with me." "Who are you?" whispered the giant, falling to his knees. "A long time ago, you let me play in your garden," the child replied. "Now, I want you to come and play in my garden. It is called Paradise." That afternoon, when the children came to play in the garden in the winter snow, they found their giant friend lying dead. The old giant looked so peaceful. He seemed to have a beautiful, peaceful, gentle smile on his quiet face. The giant was covered in small, beautiful white flower blossoms. The children thought he looked so happy and at rest. They said sweet prayers for him to be playing with children angels in a gorgeous paradise garden forever. The children always remembered the giant for his kind heart and generous spirit, and played in his garden forever. Once upon a time, there was a lovely princess who liked to take long walks into the woods. She wanted to play by the beautiful pond in the woods. After a while, she came upon the lovely pond. She sat by the side of the pond and began skipping rocks and enjoying her time. She had brought with her her treasured golden ball, a special gift from her father, the king. It was her most treasured toy. She just loved it. She threw it up in the air and caught it many times. She threw up her golden ball again, and it came down with a splash and landed in the pond. "Oh no!" cried the princess. "My beautiful golden ball! How will I ever get it back?" Just then, she saw an ugly frog coming out of the pond. The frog spoke and asked her, why was she crying? The princess could not believe she was hearing a talking frog. She blinked her eyes, and then the frog offered to retrieve her ball if she would let him live with her in her castle. She agreed to the deal and said, "Of course." The frog jumped back into the pond and dove very deep down and retrieved the princess's golden ball from the bottom of the pond.
Wow.
He then gave it back to the princess. She was so excited to get her golden ball back that she began to run back to the castle, forgetting all about her deal, leaving the frog behind. The frog was very sad and yelled, "Don't forget our deal, that I will come and live with you in the castle." The princess answered back, "How can an ugly frog possibly live with me in my beautiful castle?" And she continued on her way. The frog knew he must go to see the princess at her castle. She had to keep the deal they had made. The frog knew he had to convince the princess she must let him stay with her, even if it was just for a night or two. The frog cleaned himself up so he looked his finest. He hopped out of the pond and started to hop towards the castle. The frog finally came to the castle during the dinner hour. He hopped into the dining room, and then the princess had to tell the king all about the deal she had made with the ugly frog, about how he retrieved her golden ball from the bottom of the pond, and that he expected to come and live in the castle for retrieving the ball. The king listened to the story, and he insisted she must keep her word, and he welcomed the frog in. The frog hopped along and followed the princess to her room. He made himself very cozy on a bunch of pillows on her beautiful bed. He then fell asleep. In the morning, the frog awoke the princess and asked her for a favor. The frog asked the princess to kiss him, and he would leave her alone forever. The princess was annoyed by the frog, but she could not believe it, and she said, "Why would I kiss an ugly frog?" Just then, a tiny teardrop came out of the frog's eye. The princess saw the teardrop and thought she'd best give the frog a kiss, then he would just go away anyway. As she kissed the frog, he turned into the most handsome prince. The princess could not believe her eyes. The handsome prince told her how the evil witch had cast a spell on him and had turned him into the ugly frog. The only thing that would break the spell was a kiss from a lovely princess. When the princess heard this story, she fell in love with him immediately. The prince then asked her to marry him. She said yes. They held the wedding by the beautiful pond, and they lived happily ever after in the beautiful castle. Once upon a time, a woman wanted a child so very much. She asked a witch to help her. The witch gave her a special seed to plant. And lo and behold, the seed grew into a single flower plant. The woman was so happy when the flower opened and a lovely little girl popped out. She was no bigger than the woman's thumb. "I will call her Thumbelina and give her the best of everything," exclaimed the woman. One night, as Thumbelina slept in her walnut shell bed, a mother toad hopped in and snuck away with Thumbelina in her bed. The mother toad thought Thumbelina would make a lovely bride for her toad son. In the morning, Thumbelina was very upset to see she was stuck with the toads living on a lily pad in the water. She began to cry. A beetle flying overhead heard her cry and went to look at her. "What a remarkable creature," thought the beetle. He picked her up and took her home to his beetle village. The other beetles did not think she was very remarkable, and they told her to go away. Poor Thumbelina left and began to wander alone in the forest as the cold winter wind began to blow. As she wandered, she stumbled upon a small hole. A small field mouse found Thumbelina and offered her a home for the winter in exchange for helping around the house. The field mouse also mentioned her friend the wealthy mole, who was looking for a wife. Just then the wealthy mole appeared to invite the field mouse to see how his tunnel was coming along. Thumbelina followed along and was surprised to see a frozen swallow sticking out of the tunnel. "Oh, don't mind him," said the field mouse. "Be glad you have arms instead of wings," said the field mouse. That night, Thumbelina went back to where the swallow was. She was surprised to hear a faint heartbeat while listening to his chest. She put a grass blanket around him and hugged him close. Soon the sparrow was awake. "Where am I?" "You have saved me. However can I thank you?" chirped the sparrow. Thumbelina promised to nurse him back to health until he was strong enough to fly away. Meanwhile, the field mouse and the mole were making wedding plans, which Thumbelina wanted no part of. The swallow got better and asked Thumbelina to fly away with him, but Thumbelina stayed. The mole arrived to marry Thumbelina, but she did not want to be his wife or the field mouse's maid. "Oh, why did I not fly away with the sparrow when I had the chance?" wondered Thumbelina. Just then the sparrow landed and said, "Better late than never," and scooped up Thumbelina and flew her to a magical land, full of clear water, powdery beaches, and beautiful flowers. The swallow lowered her on a daisy and flew away. Thumbelina noticed a handsome young man perched on a nearby flower. He had transparent wings and a gold crown, and he was just about the same size as Thumbelina. Their eyes met and they fell in love instantly. "I am the king of the daisies," said the young man, as he gestured towards the little winged lords and ladies who peeked from behind all the flower petals. "Would you be my queen?" asked the king as he kissed her hand. "I would be honored to be your wife," said Thumbelina. She was presented with transparent wings just like the king's. All of the king's lords and ladies planned the most beautiful daisy-filled wedding. Thumbelina married the king in the most beautiful garden wedding the kingdom had ever seen. The king and Thumbelina flew into the cloudless blue sky and lived happily ever after in their beautiful flower castle. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Aladdin who lived far, far away with his poor widowed mother. One night, a stranger knocked on the front door and said, "Good evening. My name is Mustafa, and I am looking for my brother's son, Aladdin. I would like to take Aladdin to work with me to make good money." Aladdin wasn't too keen on the idea, because there was something about Mustafa that he did not like. But his mother thought it was a great idea, and she agreed to let Aladdin go with his uncle. Aladdin and his uncle walked for a full day into the desert, until they reached a cave with a small entrance. Mustafa was too big to fit through the entrance, so he asked Aladdin to go inside. Aladdin did not trust him and was afraid he might block him in. But his uncle told him there were gems and gold inside the cave. Mustafa told Aladdin he could take as much as he wanted. Mustafa only wanted an old lamp from inside the cave. So Aladdin went inside. Aladdin could not believe his eyes when he entered the cave. It was full of treasures. He started filling his pockets with diamonds and rubies and emeralds. He also found a gold ring that fit his finger perfectly. Finally, he found the lamp Mustafa had asked for. He yelled for Mustafa to help him out. But Mustafa said he wanted to see the lamp first. Aladdin did not trust him, so he refused to let him see the lamp. Mustafa was angry and said, "I am not your real uncle, and I don't care about you, Aladdin. Since you won't give me the lamp, I will block the cave entrance with this huge rock." Mustafa left Aladdin inside. Aladdin sat crying with the lamp inside the cave. "Stupid old lamp," he said. "It is not even real gold." He rubbed the lamp a little to wipe off the dust. And all of a sudden, poof! A genie came out of the lamp. "Master, I will grant you 3 wishes," said the genie. Right away, Aladdin said, "Take me home." And poof, Aladdin was at home. His mother almost fainted at the sight of Aladdin. He told her about Mustafa and the cave full of treasures. Aladdin rubbed the ring he had put on his finger, and a second genie appeared. "Master, I can grant you 2 wishes," said the genie. Aladdin wished for a grand palace and enough wealth for him and his family to be rich forever. All of a sudden, Aladdin and his mother had a beautiful palace filled with riches. One day, Aladdin was walking through the city when he saw the most beautiful girl. He fell in love with her at first sight. She was the Sultan's daughter, Yasmin. Yasmin loved Aladdin too. Aladdin went to ask the Sultan if he could marry Yasmin, and the Sultan said yes. After many years, the Sultan died, and Aladdin ruled the country. This news reached Mustafa. Mustafa knew how Aladdin became so rich and powerful, and he made a plan to get the lamp back. Mustafa tricked Yasmin, who had no idea who he was, into trading him with the old ugly lamp for a shiny new one. Yasmin accepted the trade and went to show Aladdin. Aladdin was mad at Mustafa for tricking his wife into this trade. He searched for Mustafa and found him sleeping with the magic lamp. Aladdin slipped the lamp from Mustafa and raced back to the palace. Aladdin had one more wish, and he asked the genie to turn Mustafa into a frog so that he could never bother them again. The genie granted Aladdin's wish, and Yasmin and Aladdin lived happily ever after.